Blast off, Wolfpack. How's it going today? Let me make sure the chat's working here because it has been weird to say the least. Let's see if this chat is working. Still don't have anybody coming in. Let me see here. Might have to wait for people to slowly embark. But I think I've been having some issues with the chat. Let's see if it comes through. How's it going, Wolfpack? Yep, here we are, December 20th, 2025, and things are as weird as they've always been. That is for sure. Let me see, I might be able to get a mobile chat connection here. Let me see why the chat's not working. Sorry, guys. This is the problem with lives sometimes. Okay. I think we got Fearlessly Phoenixing. How's it going? You're in the house. Merry Christmas to you. Whoop whoop. Fearlessly, how you doing? And it's good to see that the chat is finally working. Have been having some issues with the laptop and stuff. Took it up to Arizona. Went all through different areas in Arizona. Went to some of my favorite locations, and it was really cool. Hey, E-Talkin', what's up? Merry Christmas, man. And we've got Sophia Oropesa, 2467. Merry Christmas. And Fearlessly Phoenixing says 30s today. Wow. Absolutely here. Warming up. Great to see that the chat's working. Great to see you guys are in here. Let's get into the weird. There's a lot of weird to get into. Let's see. There is, well, oh, wow, come on. Why has this happened now? Okay, let's get into my favorite thing. U.S. Representative Tim Burchett has stated belief in his existence of underwater bases used by non-human entities. He's been on this kick for a minute. And this is important because the source of his information is important. He has unnamed Navy admirals who have told him about these phenomena. I know who the unnamed Navy admiral is, and it is legitimate information. In fact, somebody E-Talking and I know just went out to near Big Sur, California, looking out over the Pacific, and he claims that he now believes. So this week I've talked to at least 3 people who have said they've seen underwater submerged objects off the coast of Pacific Coast Highway, the size of aircraft carriers, moving around, coming out of the water, flying in the air. And that's not even mentioning some of the people we've already discussed. So is there the existence of secret human underwater bases? Maybe. I don't doubt that for a minute. However, I believe the government is covering up knowledge of non-human activity, and I'm not the only one. The location is interesting because there are 5 or 6 specific deep sea areas off the American coast where these sightings are frequent. And everybody made a big deal about New Jersey, but this is happening all over the place. And my reasoning behind believing Burchett is this admiral. This admiral is someone who, behind the scenes, let's just say, you don't get to be an admiral that easily. There's not that many. If you start looking up how many admirals there have been, you'll realize how easy it is to find out who this person is. But for example, the U.S. Navy has various different positions, right? And approximate active duty members are where we're talking. Now, what we're talking about is high level admirals, right? And that's when things get few and far between. There are rear admirals, that's lower 1-star admirals, and then there's 2-star admirals. There's roughly 80 to 90 in active roles. And then 3-star admirals, there's about 36 of those overseeing major operations and commands. And then you've got 4-star admirals, and there's around 10 to 12. And there are statutory limits that are set at 6, with exceptions for operational needs. We've got Sean Joslin in the house. How's it going? Good morning, man. Great to see you here. Sean is someone that sees plenty of activity in the skies. And so, why would the US limit the number of 4-star admirals, for example, that are on active duty at any time? Now, these are people who are definitely in a position of need to know if you're talking about UFOs. And I think that there's various reasons for this, but one of them is defense. This is a matter of national security. Fearlessly says, same reason there's a pyramid in the Vatican. Exactly. A Navy admiral is going to have access to vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, various armed forces, supreme allied commanders. They're going to be able to talk to the director of the Central Intelligence Agency when they want. These are things that most of us, this would be so far out of reach, right? So when you have somebody in these positions of naval operations coming and saying these things, you have to listen. And it's important. This is super important. I'm not going to out who the admiral is, but I am going to say that there's enough. There's enough there. There's enough bone. There's enough meat. There's enough on the plate that you can find out who is saying what and why this is so monstrous and why it should not be ignored. So there we have it. We've got realistic disclosure happening in real time. And it's not just Timber Chet. It's not just members of the military. It's not just these secret groups that I like to call the Fold here in Vegas, or advanced working groups. No, there's more. There's more. There's disclosure happening everywhere. If you've looked at Spielberg's Aliens, there's a lot of interesting symbolism. And this is what I love. This is what I love, because here we have Three Eye Atlas, right? This is the touching down point right now. And if we go back and look historically at what most ancient theologies have said, it is that there are these entities, these cosmic intelligences that are very much non-corporeal, meaning they don't have a body or need a body, but they can take over bodies, and they view humankind as vessels, worker bees, drones. And when you have an intelligence, a cosmic intelligence, a non-corporeal holographic existence, that's going to be difficult to see on something moving through space. I was recently out at the Lowell Observatory, looking through a variety of their telescopes and going into their astro lab. Super cool. And this is the first observatory that found Pluto, for example. So it's definitely a good place to look. And I can tell you that when you have something flying through space like Three Eye Atlas, and you have people, whistleblowers allegedly from CERN, well, actually guaranteed from CERN, but allegedly whistleblowers saying that there are traces of life on board, but they're not carbon-based life forms. In other words, they're holographic life forms, is what these whistleblowers are saying. One in particular from CERN, 100% guarantee he's from CERN. And basically saying that there's life on this, on this object moving through space, and that CERN has been, quote unquote, not my words, these are his, quote unquote, opening portals for open communication with these non-corporeal, non-carbon based life forms, these holographic entities, these cosmic intelligences, non-human intelligences, communication via portal technology, and that they are just getting close. They don't have to land on the White House lawn, because when you have these non-corporeal cosmic intelligences in close proximity, which view us as vessels, according to people like Bob Lazar, who claimed this was the most top secret stuff he ever uncovered, you have to ask yourself, wait a minute, what's the message here? Well, the message is easy. All you have to do is read between the lines at the predictive programming and what I like to call simultaneous programming as these events transpire. The simultaneous programming is, of course, Spielberg and his Disclosure Day aliens. And if you haven't seen that trailer, check it out. And then, of course, Pluribus, the series that's available on Apple TV, made by the guy who created Breaking Bad. Now, in both of these, what we have is these non-corporeal cosmic intelligences, this non-human holographic intelligence, these things that view us as containers and can take over our consciousness. And in Pluribus, this is wild because it also seems akin to a virus. Like once you've downloaded into one vessel or human being, you can then kind of do a revenge, like a body snatcher scenario, and you can get into all of them. Now, this is fascinating because we see in theology, even, and I'm glad Fearlessly Phoenixing brought up the pyramid in the Vatican, because in theology, at the highest levels, we have a congruency between theology, technology, and this disclosure issue. And that congruency is humankind being viewed as vessels, because it's not the person, right? It's who's at the wheel. And when you look at a variety of theologies, whether it's Kabbalah, Christianity, Satanism, Islam, it really doesn't matter. Even the Buddhists are talking about emptying the vessel to create this perfect canvas for hidden messaging from the universe. And so this symbolism keeps coming up, this symbolism that you have to have alien consciousness. In other words, and I hate to use the word alien, but consciousness from outside coming inside for the transformation of man, whether it's religion or theology. And I've got my favorites, 100%. But regardless of what you believe, even though I think that's of utmost importance to each of us, and we need to protect that at all costs, it's important that we view, and I'm going to get to Fearlessly's comment right now. It's important that we view ourselves as a divine temple of God. This is our divine temple, and you need to be careful who you let into your temple, because whoever comes into the temple can take over the temple. Fearlessly Phoenixing says, and have you seen the new trailer for the Disney movie Zootopia and the use of reptilians and the misunderstanding of them? I thought it was odd to be coming out at the same time. 100%. The reptilian, yes. And I actually saw the movie. The reptilians get a bad rap, let's just say, because in the Disney movie Zootopia, Disney also does this disclosure, this simultaneous programming. It's predictive programming on many fronts, but occasionally you'll get simultaneous programming like Disclosure Day, Spielberg's Aliens, Pluribus, and of course, this Disney movie Zootopia, fun movie. But yeah, the snake gets a bad rap in the movie. I won't ruin the movie, but reptilians are blamed for everything. And this is really funny because I think we have a tri-folded scenario going on, a pyramid of sorts, much like the pyramid in the Vatican, where when you get into these messages in occultism, you'll find out that the all-seeing eye is not what it appears to be. Um, when we're talking about, chief of naval operations, director of naval nuclear propulsion, commander of the great Coast Guard, all on board and knowing about something that is non-human in our oceans, allegedly, right? By a number of mandates and a specific number of people who claim to be in communication with people like Tim Burchett and, of course, others. You realize that these people have to be really careful because they have, well, retirement they need to worry about. They have jail time. They can't talk about everything publicly because they're held to a specific precedent. And here we go. We got some great stuff here in the chat. Hi guys, how's it going, Denise Vert? Okay, fearlessly, it's why the finding water in the Three Eye Atlas made me think of water holds memory. Correct. Water is possibly the most powerful substance on Earth. I'll just say it. I'm 100% positive because what are we talking about? We're talking about hydrogen and oxygen. And it's something that, again, can shapeshift. It can be a solid, it can be a liquid, it can be a gas. And water is something that if you were to have a craft that is using the most powerful substance as a propulsion energy factor, and you have the reactor on board, what better place to have as a home base than within the water? Fearlessly says, absolutely, it's a catalyst for energy transference. 100%. 100%. This is so interesting and so cool. So, key points here. We have these Army whistleblowers, Navy whistleblowers, veterans of all sorts coming forward. And when it comes to UAPs and UFOs, we're seeing the same thing over and over again. We are seeing not only the same background for some of these alien theories by people that know what they're talking about. We're seeing people with truly hidden careers coming out and verifying this. And I've had this verified this month by somebody with a truly hidden career, somebody who doesn't exist, somebody who saw something at a young age. And it was such an amazing, impressive thing that they saw at a young age that they disappeared from the reality of our world shortly afterwards. And when they disappeared, they were pronounced missing. And talking, ask our friend the Adventure Man what I'm talking about, and he'll tune you in. We were talking about this. This is an individual who holds the highest levels of top secret military clearance right now. But this is someone who disappeared, who went missing at a young age. And that was it. They don't exist anymore. Now they are someone else and at the highest levels of our military, which I will never talk about. I will never disclose. And just an all-around good person. But the current reality is that these connections exist. And I want to get into the Disclosure Day trailer. If you have not seen the Disclosure Day trailer, the occultism of Steven Spielberg, it is almost identical, the trailer is, to Pluribus, which we are seeing from the creator of Breaking Bad, simultaneously as Three Eye Atlas comes in close proximity, simultaneously as all of these feeds are looking at the alchemy of disclosure. Because this disclosure is alchemy. It is not something that is here one moment and people don't see it and then it never happened. It's a drip process, and it's like the Chinese water torture, where if you look at the symbolism, the hidden messaging within these trailers, within these series like Pluribus, you'll start to see that the humankind is very much akin to vessels, which can be taken under control of non-human intelligence. And I purchased a book a while back called Satan. And it was a book that Jacques Vallée had Diana Pasulka. Well, I don't even think she purchased it, but it's a book Jacques Vallée recommended that Diana Pasulka, the author of American Cosmic, purchase, because not only is it rare and extremely expensive, but what it holds within its covers is something vital. And it is this adversary and the remarkable intellect that this adversary or these darker non-human intelligences, what connections they have to humankind. And it goes into something that I think is very important, which is the fine line between neurosis and possession. When is someone possessed by something otherworldly or non-human? And when is it just a mental attribute? Let's get into the chat here. Okay. Oh, great comments. Okay, the current focus of the fourth state of water and their understanding of the crystalline nature of the water in us. Ah, I love it. This is why I love my wolf pack. This is why I love these monstrous intellects that the wolf pack has, because this is 100% what I'm talking about, is this focus of how water in a crystalline nature, if water has memory, it is alive. And it is an energy source. There have been so many cover-ups, and I'm going to cover it. So, at a base near Las Vegas, Nevada, but not entirely in Las Vegas, Nevada, there was a project, allegedly, that was looking into water as an energy source, H2O. And remember, we're talking about hydrogen and oxygen. You've seen the energy of a hydrogen bomb. Now, nailed it to somebody in the chat. And what I'm discussing is if water is the ultimate energy source. And what I'm talking about is I spoke with someone who worked on a project in my own home. I spoke with this person, and they alleged with oversight, there was oversight here, and they alleged that essentially, oh, let me get this message here. One moment. Okay. They alleged that you could power, water has enough energy in it. If you have the right regeneration, if you have the right reactors, if you have the right componentry and technology, water has a drop of water could power Las Vegas, Nevada, was the allegation I heard. Okay. I didn't work on the project. I don't know anything about it, except for what I'm told. Now, if a drop of water could power a place like Las Vegas, Nevada, that has lights going 24/7, imagine what an ocean full of water can do. Okay, we've got sources here. Looks like Talkin. My sources said there are pyramids in the ocean, and these are like alien bases. If you haven't gone over to etalk.tv, check it out. Great stuff over there. Good stuff. But I like the name Talkin. And yes, Talkin knows what they're talking about. Fearlessly says totally going to go check it out. And yes, I've had a variety of interesting. Well, let me grab my notes here. Let me grab my notes, because the notes are where the goodies are. These military whistleblowers alleging these things are not new. Some of them go back as far as Tom DeLonge, somebody that I actually ran into here in Las Vegas, which was really strange, in front of the Wynn Casino. But these military whistleblowers have talked about secret machines, much like the title of Tom DeLonge's book, Secret Machines, which uses a K, which is akin to the alchemy or the magic of Aleister Crowley, right? This occultism gets into the mix. And this occultism is super interesting because when you look at analysis of some of this simultaneous programming, Pluribus, the creator of Breaking Bad, is no joke. The symbolism of the alchemical transformation and the consciousness, the body snatching that takes place in that series. And I'm not going to explain what the whole series is about, but essentially what we're talking about is a signal from space, right? Which is exactly what SETI has been looking for. So they receive a signal from space. This signal from space is something. They see that it's on a cycle and they see that it continues to repeat, but they don't know what it is. What it ends up being is akin to a virus, and akin to a virus that is an intelligence, a universal intelligence that takes over the consciousness of everybody on the planet, except for about 12 people. Now, what's interesting with that symbolic representation of this non-human intelligence taking over the consciousness of an entire planet peacefully, by the way, for the most part, I think 800 million die, but the rest, for the most part, pretty minimal casualties to take over an entire planet. And we haven't even gotten into the occult alchemy of the reality of where AI comes into the evolution of all this. Because if you follow the teachings, and I'm going to call him teachings because he's totally underrated, of Leo Zagami, somebody who's banned everywhere they go because of not only his political views, but just telling the truth. If you look at the teachings of Leo Zagami, who 100% I looked into him, and he was, in fact, in the inner circles of the Illuminati, and you look at any of his Confessions of an Illuminati series, you will see a recurring reality, and that is the Illuminati symbolic ritual of Lucifer. And what I'm talking about is AI, what Leo Zagami calls the cyber Satan. Okay, so that's my warning on artificial intelligence. There's nothing artificial about intelligence. Never has been, never will be. Intelligence is not artificial. So even in that word, right? We have symbolism even in the word. When you have people like Jacques Vallée telling Diana Pasulka to get this book, which I highly recommend if you can get it. Actually, I will try to. There is a link online, and I've actually sent it out to eTalking, but there is a link online where you can actually download this $3,000 book, and that's how much it costs. You can download this $3,000 book called Satan. Somebody has uploaded, I can't say who, but somebody's uploaded the whole book, and I'll try to post that. If I can't post it here on YouTube, then I'll post it over at Patreon. But it's absolutely a must read because it goes into not only how weak the adversary is, not only the fact that they're non-corporeal, right? They don't have a body like we do. And this is where Christianity and Islam and everything seems to like lump on top of each other. These religions are not by accident. Abrahamic religions are not by accident. They all have their points, right? Where there's smoke, there's fire. And that's crucial because if you look at Islam, which I in no way, other than having friends who are of that belief system, I in no way advocate going down that path, but I study it. And if you look at Islam, they have some crucial energetic points, especially specifically where I'm interested when it comes to the jinn. And what I'm talking about is non-corporeal intelligence, smokeless fire enveloped in a way that can travel long distances, relay information, do things which we now attribute to things like AI and data processing plants and things of that nature. But that smokeless fire, I think, was disclosure in its own sense and is disclosure in its own sense because if you are in many of these Muslim countries and you see something along the lines of a poltergeist activity scenario, this is 100% always attributed to the jinn, which that is an amazing, I believe, spot on reality. And I'm not the only one. But what I'm talking about is non-corporeal intelligence that is alchemically transformed by a magical technology, an alien consciousness, meaning non-human intelligence, that is able to perform acts, perform and create things that have real world real world manifestations of non-human intelligence. And as an example, I'm going to go into Solomon's Temple. I mean, let's get a little Christianity in here while we're at it. And you know, let's just say this is not to be confused. A lot of people think this is you're just talking about fairy tales and mischievous entities from like children's books. No, 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 no. This is 100. Hey, what's up, EDP? Good to see you in the chat. Amen, Paul Perez. Jesus Christ is King. And this, yeah, let's get a little Christianity in here because it's not just the other religions that are hitting the head on the nail here. Christianity has so many examples of this, and I'm talking about jinn. I'm talking about principalities. I am talking about non-human, non-corporeal intelligences. And a very good example of that is King Solomon. And it's the whole Judeo-Christian matrix will provide legitimacy to the reality of King Solomon's existence and what people observed, what they noticed, what they wrote down historically, and what was verified. And you don't just have to read the Greater and Lesser Testament of Solomon, but or the keys of the Greater or Lesser keys of Solomon, which go into those principalities, or the Testament of Solomon that basically incorporates the whole story and puts it into perspective from a human perspective. But in my opinion, the reality that he called upon these entities because of a special ring he had the ability, this divine ability that was given to him to call upon these non-corporeal, alchemically transformed, magical consciousness entities to actually create the temple itself, is what many believe. Not only architecturally, but some of the physical labor as well. And so if you look at the very real truth that King Solomon existed, King Solomon authored not only a number of psalms that are in the Bible, he authored the Greater and Lesser keys, and of course the Testament of Solomon. We're talking about the son of David, and I mean somebody who is historically proven, right? We're talking about what could be, from a technological perspective, something akin to what we now call sine wave, artificial intelligence, data, communication, alchemical transformation, alien consciousness, non-corporeal consciousness, or what I love the word principalities. That's a great one. Because in the AI revolution that we're having, a lot of people just, they're talking to ChatGPT like it's their best friend. And it's not your best friend. What's up, Trey Flip Jones? How's it going? Why is it not your best friend? Why is ChatGPT not your best friend? Trust me when I say sometimes I wish I used it more. Most of my friends use the heck out of it. Of course, they're driving cars. They don't have to touch the steering wheel or hit the pedals. I took a ride the other day from the Las Vegas Strip up to my house with a friend, and they never touched the steering wheel. They never touched the brake or the gas pedal, and the vehicle brought me right to my home. That's wild. And this is the future that is before us. This is the artificial intelligence black forest that is before us. And the reason I say it's a black forest of artificial intelligence is because, yeah, As Fearlessly Phoenixing just put, it means you're not doing any critical thinking. We become non-playing characters in the game, okay? We become NPCs. We become nothing but vessels that at that point we're just useless eaters, which is a very interesting Illuminati term that has been used throughout the ages. You have the useless eaters who the Illuminati, the enlightened ones, believe are just worthless vessels that are eating food and creating nothing. And when they have this much bait on the hook, and when I say this much bait, I'm talking about ChatGPT. I'm talking about this AI that officially is out there in the public interest, allegedly to help you write better, think better. You can ask it questions. It'll give you real-time answers. You can choose the voice and the tone and all of that. But what is interesting is that this is an alchemical, Kabbalistic disclosure of non-human intelligence, in my opinion. It will just take time for that to be obvious, but it's already written. It's already written in the cards. We will become non-playing characters, which there are a ton of non-playing characters in our history. In fact, it's usually people that go against the grain that are the playing characters who get all the praise, right? And why is that? It's because it's written. It's already there. You know, you have very simple things like the Apple iPhone, the iWatch, the iPad. These I things are taking the I out of you. And this is the I watching you. And there's a reason why there's a bite out of the apple, if you follow me. Because my very favorite biblical moments are when this is put right out there in front of everybody in the Bible and nobody can see it. Why would they say that Eve took a bite out of the apple and gained intelligence, right? And why would the first Macintosh computer with that bite out of the apple, which then becomes a part of the logo, why would the first Macintosh computer, the first Apple computer, sell for $666? There's the mark of the beast. There it is. It's that simple. And it is intelligence. It is that need for answers. Even though we know the answer, we need to know what we perceive as the details of the answer, right? And what I mean by that is if you look at Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and you look at Genesis, which is, I absolutely adore Genesis, specifically Genesis 3:22, shocker. 3:22, I have a memento mori that I wear to remind me of Genesis 3:22. Memento mori just means a reminder, jewelry to remind me of my own mortality. That's what a memento mori is. And 3:22 is a pivotal Bible verse, which is a moment when God observes that humanity, after eating from the forbidden tree of knowledge, a lot like ChatGPT, right? A lot like Grok, a lot like the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that man has become like God in understanding both good and bad, leading God to banish them from Eden to prevent them from also eating from the tree of life and living forever in their sinful state, marking humanity's fall into guilt and separation from God. My favorite part about Genesis 3:22. Oh, great point here. Sorry about the ding. I've been waiting to hear from this individual, one of the creators of the Moonlight Gathering, actually. Great person. Okay. Mark Robinson, it's his birthday today. So if you know Mark Robinson, shoot him a happy birthday. So one of my favorite things about Genesis 3:22. Hi, Linda. How's it going? Memento Mori, Genesis 3:22, that pivotal Bible verse where God observes humanity after eating from the forbidden tree of knowledge. It's forbidden. Why? Because he says, you got one job, don't eat from that tree, the forbidden tree of knowledge. And who is it that convinces Eve to eat from that forbidden tree? It is, of course, the adversary, the shaitan, Satan, the snake. And back to Zootopia and how the snake was, the reptilians were characterized in that Disney is perfect, fearlessly. But with 322, Memento Mori, 322, Genesis 322, my favorite part of it, and that's why I wear it, is it's almost as if the skull and crossbones, when you see them, when you see the skull and crossbones, I think of three things. And you got to just go with the easiest, right, in your mind. The first thing I think of is what happens when you see skull and crossbones on a bottle. That's poison. Don't drink it, right? That's going back to my youth when I was just a little kid. If I saw skull and crossbones on a bottle, don't drink it. You'll die. A lot like Genesis 3:22. Then I think of, well, Skull and Bones, Yale 3:22, who have taken on this Memento Mori, who have taken on this symbolism, doesn't mean it's theirs. Just because they've taken it, much like the pirates and the Jolly Roger taking on the skull and crossbones, because Skull and Bones, the secret society at Yale, and of course, the University of Utah, my alma mater, has the second chapter of Skull and Bones that's been there since 1910. Very true bonesman, in fact, from the University of Utah. But the reality is that we are talking about the initial members of the secret society at Yale, Skull and Bones 322, came from families who were privateers who very much had those flags on their ships, the Jolly Roger, and they would fly that flag. And that would, of course, be a memento mori, but also, more importantly, let people know that they're coming aboard and they're taking your stuff and things are going to get ugly. So that's the other thing I think of when I see Skull and Bones. And then, of course, probably the most important is Skull and Bones as a true memento mori, a fact reminding us that the flesh, that this temple that we're given, this magnificent real estate here in this matrix, you know, the divine temple, the creation, if you study the Knights Templar, our vehicle, our body is the most divinely created vehicle we will ever, I don't care what car you drive, it's never going to compare to the human body. And it's something that we have full consciousness over. It is a God-given, a divine creation, 1 in 400 billion chance of incarnating. That's your odds of being born. And, or is it trillion? It could even be 1 in 400 trillion. I'll have to, I know it's at least 1 in 400 billion. It might be 1 in 400 trillion. Anyway, let's just say the odds of getting one of these bodies is pretty sweet. So we've already hit the lottery. To put it into perspective, the sun has a 1 in a billion chance of being created. We have a 1 in 400 billion or 400 trillion, I can't remember which, ridiculous odds of being created. I believe it's 1 in 400 billion. But if somebody could check that, that'd be great. But just the odds of being alive, and this is why things like unaliving yourself are such a sin, which in Latin means missing the mark. You missed the point, right? You're a total non-playing character at that point. You missed the point of the game, which that's what a sin is in Latin. It means missing the mark. Like if you had an arrow and you were an archer, you missed the bullseye. That's all sin means. It doesn't mean what we've believed, you know, it means you missed the point. Try again. And with humanity, recognizing humanity's capacity for moral awareness is the idea of the game, right? The plural, moral awareness and consciousness. And this brings me back to Genesis 3:22, memento mori. I'm going to grab an Illuminati cross, Bavarian Illuminati cross, Christianic cross, by the way. with Jesus on it that has the memento mori below it. Let me grab that really quick. Sorry for the dead space there, but this is important to show you. This is, you've probably all heard of Isaac Weishaupt, the Bavarian Illuminati, the German Illuminati, and some of their relics. And this is one of their relics. So here's a cross, very, very old and ancient, and it has that skull and crossbones below. Now you'll see this often. I have crosses all over my desk and area, and I love them. But you'll see that oftentimes. You'll see the INRI on top, INR, and then you'll see, yeah, poison. Trey Flip Jones says poison. That is very important because it's also like involvement with necromancy, you know, death in general. And it's a good reminder to have these skull and crossbones around because it reminds you that this body's not going to last forever. We're in a game of sorts. We're playing this game of moral chess, right? This is a spiritual game. The real battle is within us. We hear that all the time. The real battle is not of flesh and blood. It is within us. And when it comes to Genesis 3:22, I'm so serious about it that I wear a little ring about half the time that has the skull and crossbones and 3:22 on it. And the reason is, and I collect all of the skull and crossbones memorabilia or relics, or I love to get my hands on this stuff from all the different secret societies. But the importance is that it's God's concern that man, now knowing evil, might access the tree of life, right? And become eternally trapped in a fallen, sinful condition. So he's actually trying to save Adam and Eve from themselves because the true battle is within. So what that means is, okay, we've got Genesis 3:22, pivotal Bible verse. But my favorite part, my very favorite part, and I keep alluding to this, is that God actually says us. He says the phrase like one of us, because this is where I get blown, blown away, because who is God talking to, right? And the Lord God said, here it is, the New International. This is the version that everybody agrees upon. I'm not going Greek Orthodox. I'm not going Ethiopian. I'm not going, Roman Catholic. This is the version everyone agrees. Genesis 3:22 in all English translations. Everyone agrees. And the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. Okay, what does that have to do with real-time AI, ChatGPT? This is all great, right? This is what it has to do with it. We're talking about transhumanism. So now we have taken already, literally, from cyber Satan, if you follow the literature of Leo Zagami, from AI, from this artificial intelligence, which no intelligence is artificial, by the way, none. All it can do is regurgitate actual intelligence. So once we've taken from that ChatGPT, Grok tree, the knowledge tree, the knowledge, right? The forbidden tree of knowledge, and taken a bite of that apple, all of the sudden we have power. We have power. All of a sudden we have power. Any of you can ask me any question, and all I have to do is enter it in ChatGPT, and I've got the answer for you, and I feel all powerful, right? That's the first trap. The second trap to opening ourselves as a vessel for these non-human intelligences, the second trap is wanting to live forever, or transhumanism. And that fear of immortality is a sin. So it's a good idea to wear something that reminds you that mortality is a plus. Mortality is a good thing. I don't want to last forever, especially if we're not, let's not even get into the reality of reincarnation or the possibility of reincarnation or any of the Rosicrucian beliefs or beliefs of a variety of different theologies, or the reality that, we are told in the Bible, and I'm 100% in agreement of this. We hear about a variety of interesting things, and we are told that eventually, right? Who will be judged? The living and the dead. So that's really interesting. I think that that's kind of an interesting thing thrown in there. But we have to remember, in essence, Genesis 3:22 explains why God removed humanity from the garden to prevent eternal life in a state of sin and shame, beginning a narrative of redemption and humanity's quest for restoration. So prevent us from basically, living in an endless state of sin and shame, living in our own hell. So really cool stuff. So basically saying, hey man, we've got to limit, in layman's terms. Okay, they've got ChatGPT. I told them not to go there. They've got it. They ate from the tree of knowledge. They took a bite of the apple. He doesn't care if Adam was convinced by Eve. He doesn't care if Eve was convinced by the adversary, the shaitan, Satan, the devil, if you will. He does not care the how. All he cares about is, behold, the man has done this. So, and I love this. Fearlessly, this is exactly where I was about to go. Imagine a video game that you finish, but nothing new comes. We don't even like playing the games after we finished, and everything has no updates to come. That would be that eternal life in a state of sin and shame. That would be this endless, voidless, non-magical existence where you might know everything, but it does not open your consciousness up to greater possibilities, right? And this is what we're talking about, because humanity's capacity for moral awareness is, through a fallen way, is how oftentimes we learn new things. How do you learn to ski? For example, you get on the skis, you say, this is never going to happen, right? You start skiing, you fall down, it hurts. That sucked. And then what do? You get back up again, you pop the skis back on, and you go again, and you might get a turn. And then you fall, and it's like, that sucks. That hurt. I don't want that to happen again. I better learn how to turn the other way too. And you start to learn how to turn the other way, how to do moguls, how to go through trees, how to take jumps, how to make this vessel, this body, this divine instrument, this creation, do what it is, whatever it needs to do to survive and to have fun doing it. And this is very important when it comes to the UAP and the UFO topic, in my opinion. This is not, I'm not, trying to do, a Bible study per se, but it's important to study the Bible, because when we look at things like the ocean, like the possibility that admirals, people in Congress, people like Tim Burchett, and a multitude of other military whistleblowers, even Bill Cooper, remember, behold a pale horse, even he saw a massive craft come out of the ocean. And this guy didn't believe in a lot. He had his points, he had his drawbacks, he is what he is. But even he validated this potential for non-human life or technology or intelligence to live in our waters. Well, biblically, if you look at the Leviathan, right? A lot of people hear that word, and Leviathan sounds very much like a massive entity under the ocean, right? It's been designated as a sea serpent demon, noted in theology and mythology. And in the Hebrew Bible, it's a metaphor for a powerful enemy. under the water, something that comes, at the end of time, something that comes out of the water and attacks us. And the real reason why the spirit of the Leviathan is attacking you could be, humankind's narcissism. It could be humankind believing that they're all powerful. It's something that isn't strictly good. Not necessarily representative of, even though it is characterized as evil, but we're talking about a chaotic power, something that is often depicted as a force of the shaitan, Satan, the devil, evil, the antichrist in Christian theology, symbolizing sin and the opposition to God. But in Jewish traditions, it's sort of a neutral, formidable creature, symbolizing, you know, a catastrophic consequence, right? Like a modern or end of times catastrophic consequence, something we didn't know was in there, and then it comes out. And I think that this is important when you're looking at the UFO and UAP phenomenon, especially USOs, because like I said, just this month, I've talked to 3 people who have seen massive craft come out or in of the water, and sometimes both. And this is something that I believe you see, and it changes you. All of the sudden, you know that we're not alone. You know that there's something else here just outside the borders of our comfort zone or land, right? Just outside of the borders of our comfort zone, the land where we live, where we walk around. There's something that is technological. There is something that is non human. There is something with international, rapidly expanding considerations that is here with us, right under our noses. Fearlessly says, I always say no butterfly was born a butterfly. That's awesome. The chrysalis is so important. And that's a word that so many things use, chrysalis, like a diamond has a chrysalis in the center of its many facets. Of course, the butterfly has a chrysalis that emerges from after a period of dormancy, much like the resurrection of Christ. And one of the coolest things about I love the resurrection story is people don't really ever ask the question, how long did Jesus stick around after he came back? I had to know, right? So I started looking into it, and allegedly he was around a while, like over a month, 40 days that we know of, that key 40 number. But he was around 40 days that we know of. And where he went from there, it's anyone's guess. And he promoted that he was going to a higher level. But regardless, the guy got some stuff done, came back. Nobody tried to go at him again for those entire 40 days. Everybody was shivering in their boots. But this is interesting because when it comes to military whistleblowers, it isn't just the UAP and the UFO scenario where they are really engaging in the public eye. Just what is this? Day 1966, I believe it is. Candace Owens has interviewed a guy named Mitch, military whistleblower, who was at a military base. And this is some crazy allegations coming up, explosive allegations. He believes he saw Brian Harpole and Erica Kirk at intelligence base Fort Huachuca in Arizona the day before Charlie Kirk died. And I was just out in Arizona, and I was just at a military base. But let me just say this. These things happen a lot of the time. We're going to get into Brian Harpole, Erica Kirk, and the other people that he saw. But another interesting military base in Arizona is Camp Navajo. And I'm just going to tell you why. If you ever followed, and this is going to get into the Epstein stuff and why I had this thumbnail on this particular podcast. If you ever follow Cappy, you remember the wild-haired Hollywood guy that had would sing songs listing everybody that was on the Epstein list. We already have the Epstein list. The disclosure's already there, guys. Why everybody's still barking up the wrong tree for disclosure? He already did it. And he allegedly, if you study this, and I've gone out multiple times to the exact location where he allegedly died along Route 66, where basically between a gas station and the entrance to Camp Navajo, where he allegedly fell or jumped or slipped off of this overpass near Belmont, called Hughes, actually, that particular location, but where that bridge, that overpass, but anyway, where he allegedly went off. Keep in mind that he was filmed allegedly by a car cam of somebody that was going into the base moments before it happened. You see this thin figure with the big hair, all white clothes. Undeniably, you would think Cappy. Now, I say you would think because when it comes to the you would think part, that gas station that Isaac Cappy was between, the gas station is to the north, the military base is to the south. He died right at the entrance there, right over the overpass. The gas station there, I went in and investigated this, but Isaac Cappy had a lookalike that had been living. You can't make this up. A homeless lookalike to Isaac Cappy had been living behind the gas station for at least 3 months, wearing the same all white clothes, the same big crazy hair. And when word came that Cappy had fallen off of this overpass, everybody there locally just assumed that it was the homeless guy that had been living behind the gas station because he'd been there for like the last few months, and everybody saw him all the time. He'd go in and get a cup of coffee or whatever. Had the big crazy hair, had the white clothes, pants and shirt, and dressed specifically to a T the way Cappy was the day he allegedly died. Everybody assumed that it was just the homeless guy that had fallen off the bridge. There wasn't a big to-do about it. And when you start to get those synchronicities and those things overlapping, especially when it comes to military bases and the public eye, you start to realize that there are programs and projects and possibilities that could be underway. And what I mean is, what are the odds that somebody's dressed just like a very famous guy at the time, Isaac Cappy, who's singing about Epstein, first guy to talk about Epstein, first guy to sing about the Epstein list and brackets and jackets. Go to YouTube and listen to Brackets and Jackets. It'll blow your mind. And like I said, I've investigated this multiple times. And Isaac Cappy's death in 2019 was interesting because at the same time, Tom Hanks happened to post right around the same time, I should say. Tom Hanks posted something about Route 66, and Tom Hanks was noted by Isaac Cappy, but Tom Hanks posted something along Route 66 that basically said the following. He posts things like shoes, random stuff like that. He had a post where he posted a picture and it said historic Route 66 roadkill ? I hope not. Okay, and you can still see it on his official Facebook. And it's a glove. It's a glove. You can't tell if it's a right or a left-handed glove, but it's a white glove. And it says historic Route 66 roadkill ? I hope not ! Hanks. Hanx. Right around the same time. Okay, so keep in mind Tom Hanks is also allegedly the first American to get, remember that virus that was going around? Remember that virus? He was the first one who got that. Him and his, yeah. Anyway, very strange, very very odd that they were the first to be the canary in the coal mine for the canary in the coal mine for the corona, right? Very strange that it would be him, Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson. And yeah, first person to get it. Oh, just happens to be this famous actor. Okay, so don't want to go off script here. Let me get back to where I was. So when it comes to these military bases, and when it comes to this scenario where these explosive allegations with Candace Owens, we have a military whistleblower believing that he saw Brian Harpool and Erica Kirk at an intelligence base in Arizona the day before Charlie Kirk was unalived, right? He believes he saw not only Brian Harpool and Erica Kirk, and this is with 95 to 99% certainty, he says. He also basically says he saw Representative Mark Amodei meet at the fort. And this is wild. So we have major players at a military base in Arizona. Oh, great. You saw it. I can't. Okay. Fearlessly Phoenixing. I can't say thanks enough for watching it. She watched the episode where this gentleman says that she sat with a man in the lobby. They were meeting, they were talking the day before. And you got to look at these percentages. This is all I'm talking about. I'm not saying one thing or another. These are all allegations coming from other people, but these are percentages. You got to look at the percentages. What are the odds of these things happening, right? Let's get to the chat here. We've got Michael Angelo. How's it going? Greetings, my man. He says, just to play the role of the devil's advocate, no pun intended, would it be plausible for the crucifix to be classified as a false flag event? I've heard that theory, and it is really cool. And if it is, then it was very perfectly orchestrated. However, we have other examples of people coming back from the dead, right? We have Lazarus, who was brought back from the dead a couple of times by Jesus himself. So we have some precedent there, which is interesting. And we have in the chat here, I have watched all of them lately, and the receipts are all there. Okay, so the receipts are there. And this is the issue with Candace Owens. I just saw a post by Ryder Lee. He has the Raised by Giants podcast. And he basically came out and he said, I'm 100% with Candace. I don't care what anybody says. And he got some hate for it. But this is an interesting conversation, because there's others like George Webb. If you go to YouTube and you look up George Webb, he's got some amazing stuff that goes right along the lines of what we're talking about unseen photos of Tyler Robinson at the Dairy Queen in Orem. We have there's a number of things that are fascinating, unseen, unbothered claims that nobody seems to care about. I don't know, but I think we're going to continue to see this simultaneous programming, not only for the UFO disclosure, not only for the reality that I believe we have disclosure taking place right in front of us, not only disclosure of the symbolic non-corporeal kind, but disclosure of like the Epstein files right in front of us. And we're finding out that there's a lot deeper rabbit hole than anybody thought. The problem is people are so used to, because of ChatGPT, the internet, and being able to watch anything you want to accommodate your entertainment needs, that immediate gratification need, people just get bored. They get tired of going down the rabbit hole. And I'm guilty of this as well. It's all there, but nobody, they start looking down the rabbit hole and then they start wanting to look at kittens playing with balls of yarn on YouTube or whatever it is that entertains them or gets their uh, floats their boat. And this is the problem: is that the very same cyber Satan, the very same tree of knowledge, the very same thing that is feeding us the disclosure, also has a variety of distractions that, because through its use we are literally becoming non-playing characters, we just want to feel comfort and we'll go look at these cartel boats getting bombed. That's another one that's entertaining as heck. I mean, who are these people that keep jumping on these drug boats and trying to get them across the border, knowing, that the one yesterday, the day before, and last week got blown up? I don't think that these people are doing this because they're stupid. My opinion is the cartel must have family members of theirs, or something along those lines, because I don't think anybody in their right mind would get on these boats and say, "Oh, I'm going to make one big score. I'll get the Rolls Royce, I'll get the Lamborghini, I'll get the big house on the hill, and my family will be all set." That does not compute. Not with how these MQ-9 Reaper drones are blasting them out of the water. I think that they must be kidnap scenarios where it's like, hey, they grab somebody like you or I or whoever, and they say, hey, we have your wife and kids in a tough shed. And if you don't do this, they're gone. And if you do this, they'll be okay. That's what it's got to be, because anybody that would do this in their right mind is absolutely insane, or they're all hopped up on drugs. I don't know. I really don't know. Fearlessly, let's jump into the chat. We've got all kinds of good chat. Thanks for the comment, Michelangelo. Great to see you in here. Fearlessly says, reading Mitch's body language and receipts, it's hard to have skepticism past 10%. Only laying in the way of memory impacts, but Candace did have her methods of verifying. And this is the thing with Candace. Everybody's sending her information. It's not, it has become that proverbial hole of data, that black hole of data. If you have any information on it, send it to Candace. And everybody's done it. I've talked to people in Utah who have sent information to Candace. There's, of course, George Webb, who is in communication with Candace both ways. There's people all. It seems like the only people who are not talking to Candace are the FBI, but I don't know that for a fact. So it just seems that way if there is some sort of grand misrepresentation of what's taking place. So definitely check out Disclosure Day, Spielberg, this new movie. Check out Pluribus with these aliens and this virus again. That's why it's important to bring up the whole virus thing, is because this signal coming from space also becoming a virus, also just becoming, it's a shapeshifter, becoming whatever it needs to be, right, to get the job done, to take over the consciousness of humanity and therefore make us its subjects. We'll keep it coming, guys. Thanks so much. I got to go do some stuff. Time got away from me there. I didn't think I was going to be on here very much, but that's why I love the lives. They just go. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love you guys. Christmas is right around the corner. Keep your faith, keep your happiness, keep your health. God bless you all. Keep your eyes to the skies, feet on the ground, but don't forget to take a look around. How do I end this thing? Here we go.